Dear viewers, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to you all. Welcome to our webinar on how to become a successful researcher by Associate Professor Dr. Tapon Sharkar, who received his PhD from Australian National University and currently serving as a director at the Department of Business Strategy and Innovation, Griffith Business School, Australia. He is also a member of Griffith Asia Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Tapon has a strong media presence. He has appeared in ABC Science, Sky News, SBS, ABC Brisbane, and many more. Dr. Tapon and his work has also been featured internationally in VTV Mongolia and Vientiane Times. Dr. Tapon has provided training and management consultation to a number of organizations, including the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment of Laos, and Mongolian Revenue Authority. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a former World Bank scholar and was a visiting professor at Soka University, Japan in 2019, Kyoto University from 2014 to 15 in Japan as well. He is also a scholar in residence at IIM, Calcutta, India. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Tapon is widely published in the area of corporate social responsibility and sustainability, as well as in climate change. He has been a chief investigator of a range of interdisciplinary projects supported by competitive and external funding through the National Climate Change Adaptation Research Facilities, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the Australian Council of International Agriculture Research, the Asian Development Bank, and the World Bank. He has supervised 4 PhD students to completion. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Tapon has received a Queensland Day Award for his community service and received teaching awards for teaching and excellence teaching award for the service in Brisbane as well in 2016 and 17. Ladies and gentlemen, the most highlighted thing that we all would be proud for is he is recently published in a finance research layer in International Journal of Economics and Finance. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are very, very delighted to welcome Associate Professor Dr. Tapon Sharkar to conduct the most weighted webinar, How to Become a Successful Researcher. Dr. Tapon Sharkar, welcome to our webinar.
Thank you, Mahfuz, and thank you so very much. It is a great pleasure for me to just come here and talk to you. And I know that this program will be presented and broadcast in many places. And reaching out to you from here in Australia to wherever I am not visiting at this moment, it's a great pleasure. And I'd like to thank particularly Linkwith Research and Training Center for organizing this important piece of seminar. So I want to make sure that this is a very informal way of communication. So please feel free to write whatever you like, in the chat box, and I like to make sure that I address these questions. In 1 hour time, definitely I cannot, teach you everything about research. So my main intention and my objective is to encourage you and to motivate you in a way that you become a very good researcher, and in the years to come you can do some very good research for you, but as well as for your motherland, and as well as for this whole world. From now, I like to probably share on my screen. So let me just share my screen and start my my presentation in that way. So can you? No, I don't think I'm sharing correctly.
Yeah.
So can you see my screen?
Not Prof. I think maybe you have to do this the similar way that you have done earlier.
I have done before.
Again.
I don't know what is happening. So let me stop that. Let me try here. So how can I share the screen now? Before I was
You
going,
have
I
to go to
was,
application window. You have to go to application window. If you look at application window, then you can find your. If you click the share screen down there,
yes. Oh, application window.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Sorry for that.
no issue, Prof.
Can you see this now, please?
Uh,
Because
yes,
I
yes, Prof.
cannot
We can
see the
see.
screen now. Thank you once again. So, well, once again, a warm welcome to this particular seminar that I have intentionally said that how to become a successful researcher. And this is something that you cannot just become a successful researcher just as quickly. There is no quick pathway to become a successful researcher. You really have to work out. It's like if you are a good sportsman, you have to really work out, isn't it? We cannot have a Shakib, we cannot have a Mushfiq in a day or a month or a year. They have been working very hard to become a cricketer as such, what they are currently. Same is you really need to dedicate yourself. Your motivation is very, very important. So for me, as Dr. Mahfuz was saying, I have been in this teaching and research for a very long time. It's like more than 2 decades. So you can imagine that is pretty normal that by now I should have so many grants, so many, achievements. And I believe that you can do even more. I am a dreamer. I dream that you as a young researcher can do even better, because in this age of, we call it the information age, you have plenty of opportunities. You are open to the gateway of knowledge, unbounded knowledge, and you can potentially become a very good researcher. So I do research, particularly as Mahfuz was telling, in areas of sustainability is the center. But I do in a way which is very, very collaborative. As you will see that at one time, actually currently I have been working probably more than 20 projects. I think it is more than that, but it is tough. It is difficult. But obviously at my level, I am mainly doing, we call it research leadership. So leadership will happen and you will be a research leader at one point gradually as well. So my research currently has a particular focus on Bangladesh, where I am originally from and I am proud of, with the Central Bank of Bangladesh, with the Ministry of Finance, and also more recently like Khulna University. So these are some of the places I have. But you have noticed that my research has mainly using partnership. And as you will grow up, this is what you will do. And especially you will do this with non-government organizations, with international organizations like Asian Development Bank, World Bank, governments, and also more importantly, you will work with industry. Like I have been working with Selco India, Mahindra and Mahindra India, 𝐀𝐬𝐬𝐸𝐿 India, and obviously academics. So my research is just wide, very wide. It is interdisciplinary, but has a particular focus on Asia and Pacific. So Asia Pacific is a very important part of the global importance, as you will see that China is now the second largest economy in the world. Japan is, pretty much the third largest economy in the world. So globally, as you will see, Asia Pacific has 30% of the global GDP, 30% of the global population. So ideally, this is a great location for doing research and focusing your research on that. Most of my research are funded research. They're funded by government, they're funded by ERC, the big organizations, as well as through industry. They're collaborative, they're engaged, but more importantly, there is a focus on sustainable development goals. And for many young researchers who will be listening after this or listening now, sustainable development goals, they comprise of 17 goals, starting from poverty, which is goal 1, and at the end, goal number 17, which is partnership. I tell you one thing, it is all about partnership now. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I believe through this seminar, we can develop some sort of partnership as well. We have already done that. So you'll notice that my research has a different fields of research. And the reason why I'm showing it to you that you should be able to tell you that what are the key fields of your research. From here, you should be saying that, okay, what are the key research that you do? And as you will notice that my research also aligns with Griffith's vision, which is we want to recognize Asia Pacific and deepening our engagement with the region. And we want to contribute to robust, equitable, and environmentally sustainable society. So why my research is particularly looking at this environmentally sustainable society? We all know that the Paris Climate Accord, and Bangladesh is a signatory, and many of you probably in Malaysia is a signatory too. There is a deadline that whereby which you really have to cut your emission a significant percent. I'm not going into the detail. And to do that, industries have to play a very big role. And to do that, also government and industry need to work together as well, right? Industry, whether we like it or not, is the key contributor of jobs. Like in developed country, in every 10 jobs, 9 jobs are created by businesses and industry. How important this sector is. And now many of us in whatever research we are doing, we really have to work closely with business. Because as I said to you, when business is dying or collapsing, then at the end of the day, what happens is that there is a trouble in the economy. And as you will notice now in the COVID-19, it's all about the collapsing of the economy because businesses are also collapsing and not working or functioning as it should be. So yes, I'm in the School of Business, so it has a particular focus on business, but not just the business, but business in general, where it works. If business doesn't work in the moon, if business doesn't work in the ocean, if business will only work to serve the society and to meet the societal needs. So these are some of the fields of research, but particularly looking at business ethics, sustainability, business and management issues, and obviously impacts of climate change. So yeah, I have some books, articles, industry handbooks. So it's a really heavy, and I'm in the academia for last about 10 plus years. Before that, I worked in different other sectors. So I bring that experience and leverage that. You should leverage your particular experience in your research. Probably you came to academia from working a few years in a bank. Is there anyone that you have come to academia working in a bank? Probably, I believe. Or working in a company or working somewhere. You should be able to leverage this. That's your competitive advantage. That's very important insights. Or you probably worked in a government or somewhere or NGO. It is very important that you can bring that experience into your research. So what is driving my research? This is one of the book that is probably my second book where I published is on the political economy of sustainable development, looking at the policy instruments. And it came at a time which is when this Paris Climate Accord was signed in 2015, where I argued, and you will see in the 3 circles in the left-hand side, that what is sustainable development, and it is a dependent variable. From now on, I will talk a little bit of language of research. So dependent variable is what you are trying to do that is have some independent variable, which is what are influencing your dependent variable, which are the other circles. And that is going to be one of the critical aspect of my research. So I believe and I encourage and I really suggest and I advise you that all of you should have a central question that what you are going to focus in your research. You may have some many other things, but on particular thing that you really need to focus on. And as Mahfuz is saying, my research is currently being published in Finance Letter, which is mainly financing sustainable development goals. Think about a country like a developing country like Bangladesh, where a lot of people are under poverty, the government is trying to do, but financing the goals, eradicating poverty, easing the gender inequality, which is goal number 5, that needs finance. Without the finance, how can you really promote or achieve sustainable development goal? And that is the key and central part that is driving my research. And I really encourage you to just say within 1 minute, if I ask you, okay, what is your key research or what is driving your research? You should just don't say, oh, okay. You should really say, okay, this is what is going to do. Okay, everybody who are here listening, it is like we call it an elevator pitch. So you went to a lift or elevator and it is going on the 3rd floor. And within that time, you have to say, what is your current research? You met somebody and said, hi, this is my research. I'm mainly looking at what are the financing options for sustainable development goal. If you cannot say what is your research in just 1 minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes maximum, then it is very difficult to see actually what you are doing. So we have an upcoming book which we are going to publish next year, and that is Handbook of Sustainable Finance. And we will definitely share that book at some point. So let's move on. So yeah, I cannot see the screen now, but can anyone just say that, are you clearly listening to me? Because I cannot see the screen.
Yes, Prof.
Okay,
Yes, Prof. It's very clear.
Okay, so so let us say hello to research. Everybody say hello, wherever you are, just say hello, okay? Hello, because you really need to embrace that research. Okay, not with fear, not with anything, but you really need to embrace in your both hands. You are motivated to do research. You should remember there is no shortcut. As I gave an anecdote, an example of becoming a good cricketer, there is no shortcut. You cannot go play a test match and can make a double hundred. No, these guys are playing and working and really trying their best for a very, very long time. And in research too, you really, if you're thinking, okay, there is a shortcut and I will finish that research. And I know some of my PhD students are listening here and maybe some future potential PhD students. This is clearly from my end, and anywhere in Australia, you will probably listen the same from a research leader or expert that there is no shortcut. You really have to love that research the way you love maybe your loved person. You really need to love. This is a hard path, but it is rewarding. It is rewarding, and that is why you came to do research, right? Otherwise, you could do something else. I know all of you who are interested in research, you have very high potential to do whatever you like. You can go to the civil service, you can go, I believe so. And I have every belief on that. But you came to research because you are not just thinking about the outcome of this, rather you really need to focus on the research process. I tell you a story, and as you said, it is a storytelling. That's the method I use in my teaching. But at the same time, I'm going to tell my story. I did my PhD research. It was a research based on quasi-experimental. And I'm coming into that point, quasi-experimental research. That is my PhD research, which is a research method. There were 9 hypotheses, and 7 of them were not supported, which we call it and not accepted. I call it supported. Only 2 were supported. The PhD went very well. There are no issues. So almost 80% of the hypotheses that I formulated were not supported. PhD was accepted. So you can imagine, it is the process that was robust. It is the process that was the right process, and that's it. You do not have to manipulate data to really make your hypothesis supported. No need to do that. It is the process. Now, if your research process is original, real, and your inquiry of investigation is based on facts, okay, what is facts? I think we know all these facts, right? then your research can be a state of art. And you will be, we all will die one day, but you will be known for your research, like the way many of the good researchers in the past. Just think about Adam Smith. You heard about Adam Smith, didn't you? And when I wrote my second thesis in Japan 20 years back, and I cited Adam Smith in 18th century, Adam Smith wrote on the canons of taxation, and we are still citing that because it is a state of art. We are still citing so many of the things which are 200, 300 years even past, because that was based on facts. So open your eyes. I know that I said you, and this opening your eyes will be like this. Can you imagine? This is a photo that I shared and borrowed from one of my friends who is in Japan. And we met 20 years back, and I still have a close friendship. And this is the friend who traveled 120 countries among the so many countries in this world. Take it as a challenge. If you cannot take research as a challenge, if you find it boring, then that's it not for you. If you find it challenging, you enjoy the challenge. And as you see, how rewarding is this when he jumped into this ice. So can you imagine? I will tell that story if we get time at the end. One thing I always tell to my students that you try to think that, okay, very complex issue, make it very complex, the research. I said KIS, KISS. KISS means here is keep it simple. Make a simple structure. Do not need to make your research very big and complicated. If you can keep it simple, and that will help you. That will make it good research too. It is easy to manage, and you will love this research. You readers, you are doing this research and writing it not just for you. There are readers who will read your research. They want to enjoy reading your research too. It's like reading a book. I'm sure many of you, and probably all of you, read books, don't you? What's the book that you are currently reading? Is there any book you are currently reading? I will have a chat once I see the chat box, but I read at any time, I read probably 5 or 6 books. It is difficult for many, but it is next to my bed, and I just try to read so many things at a time, and I enjoy reading that. But here I'm telling you that just in terms of research, you really need to keep it simple. A simple structure will help you. After that, you really need to know the tools. So what is a tool? You know that I come from a farming family, and I love that. I still do farming. And for a farmer, what are the tools? There are so many tools, as you know, that a farmer uses. And for researchers, there are tools too. That the tools for analyzing data, there are tools for gathering data, there are some tools for analyzing, literatures. There are some many tools, statistical tools, econometric tools, and there are sources as well, both primary sources and secondary sources. So that is what we all need, but you also need to keep it simple. But I always say that you really need to go from here to there. So this is one kind of research. We call it, if a research is deductive, means you're starting at the bottom and then you're really narrowing it down. But can I tell you, I just told one side of the story, which is deductive research. But there are opposite side of the research as well, which is inductive. And that will be the opposite of this. So you can come back. You're starting from a small point, but you're really going and diffusing and really unearthing plenty of knowledge. So that's the both way of the research. So let me look at that, where you want to go. That's here. So research is incremental, right? So how I do my research is that I try to really do just one step further. With the research, you cannot just finish everything, okay? You just have to take a little bit of slice that this is what you're going to do. but your research should be replicated. Especially if your research is a more quantitative research, then it must be something that, yeah, it has a replication. Think about like, all the research now going on COVID-19, right? And if the replicability is higher, if generalizability is higher, means actually that is working. And that says the Pfizer, as you know, that Pfizer's vaccine is working 90%, which means it is really generalizing very high level in other setting. So that's why this side time kind of research. However, I am a social researcher. Unfortunately, I'm not a research in the medical field, but I will tell that in the science of social science, we also do research which is generalizable in other settings as well, because it is based on some rational theory, which is logical, and they're tied to theories. Sometimes you start some research which is not doable, like if you are doing a young researcher doing a thesis for your honors, thesis for your master's, and you're making this big problem or research question. I should say, and I tell to my students, if it is a short time of research, your research questions and framework should be also smaller, and you need to really narrow down as the way I showed you in the previous slide, because it should be doable. You cannot just work all 6-7 days a week for 6 months. No, this is not the way. You really need to confine the research, compacting the research, and generate new question in a more cyclical in nature. So research is cyclical. I would say it is an apolitical activity because, when you are a researcher, you really have to be very impartial. That's why I say that, and should be undertaken for the betterment of the society. And that's why the ethics question is coming. And sometimes you can do research based on the work of others. There is no harm for that. All of our research, we cite other researchers, and some people may be citing my research. And based on my research, maybe another researcher is working on. But there is a way that you can cite or you can do based on other people's research more ethically. And I will talk on that. You see the model of scientific inquiry. In the previous slide, I told you that it is cyclical. Isn't it a cycle? The first question is you really ask the question, and that's what you need to do. So this question starts from why, how. Don't you ask question why, how, or if you have a little kid, probably they're always asking you, Dad, why this is did, or Mom, why and how this is happening. You should ask too that, okay, this is happening and why it is happening and how it is happening. That's the inquiry, okay? That's the starting point. And you're saying that, okay, there are different factors, external and internal factors, and you really need to dig deep into what are the external and internal factors. I am a social researcher, and most of our research, actually all of our research, are being impacted by external and internal factors. One research that we just finished recently is how COVID-19 is impacting a small business. You got my point. So we are looking at COVID-19, which definitely is an external factor, is impacting on small business. And a small business, by the way, doesn't matter whether you are in a business student or a business researcher, doesn't matter. So a small business or SME or MSME are the heart of any society or any country, even in developed country, like in Australia, 60% of the people are actually employed in the MSME or SME. Can you imagine? I don't have the figure from Malaysia or from Bangladesh in front of me, but I can tell you how important this sector is. So we thought this is the question that we really wanted to inquire is, what are the factors? It's a what question. So it was exploratory qualitative research. What are the factors impacting small and medium enterprises in the context of COVID-19? And we found that there are the factors. Now, many of the research that is more deductive, as I said, are based on formulating a hypothesis or many hypotheses, SES, plural. And that's based on educated guess. And you collect relevant information, qualitative or quantitative data, you test that hypothesis, you resolve the dilemma, you examine the results, you relate to the theory, you come back to do this another research. You extend your research, or maybe someone else is extending your research. And that's the way this scientific model of inquiry is continuing and helping this civilization, helping our society. That's why what is next. Always it is important as a researcher to say and think about what's next. It's never stopping. It's never ending. So I will tell you a bit of types of research, particularly that I believe there are some young researchers, coming here. And also there are some very experienced researchers, but I really wanted to help those younger researchers to really understand many of the types of research they can really like and they can probably do or go for in the future. So let's see, there are mainly two different types of research. One type is non-experimental, another is experimental research. As I said, my PhD and my research, my core research is experimental, where I do mainly quasi-experiment. Quasi-experiment means that not true experiment. What is a true experiment? You see that many of the laboratory work that they do or that study done in COVID research by the biotechnology and research, that true experimental research, biological research. But on the left-hand side, non-experimental research is mostly the social science research. There are a lot of social science research. They're doing descriptive research, historical research, correlational research, and qualitative research. So what is this? You see the degree of control where my arrow is, that is the precision. So there are three words that we use in research. One is bias, another is precision, another is accuracy. So accuracy means that you really have 100 out of 100. Precision is what we are looking at. In research, you cannot say it is going to be 100 out of 100. That's absolutely not possible, frankly speaking. We must have an error, and we should have an error. Very little error still there are. But we cannot have a bias as well. So we need to be in between bias and accuracy. And the more precise your research is better. So you see that the precision level in the descriptive research is none or low. Historical research also none or low. Correlational research low to medium. Qualitative research moderate to high. But when it is a true experimental research, the what I was telling you in the COVID context is very, very high, like the research is being done by Pfizer and others at this moment. And experimental, quasi-experimental is moderate to high. So to better understand, let me give you some example. What is a descriptive research? When you use to describe characteristics of a population or a phenomena, not just population, as a phenomena. I didn't write it because of the space was not enough. What is a historical research? You are basing something historical data, like you're going back to what happened in probably in the British era in terms of the impact, that time. That's going and looking at the historical and archival documents. Correlational research that you're looking at the relationship between variables, and obviously the variables are, as I said, mainly dependent and independent variables you're looking at there. Looking at the qualitative research where you really use open questions, and this is something that I became very, very interested in recent time. I told you I come from a science background to mainly now social science, science-based science is my key area. But I started with science. But now I really like this one, which is really open questions and they do a deep study, like you are working and going into a particular setting, and like ethnographic research, like, and that you are staying in a setting and observing things and asking some deep questions which are open-ended often. There is no structure, and you are really going into sort of, case of the study and evaluation of the study going there. And this is very, very interesting. And there's true experimental research where you really have to randomly assign your test, because this randomization is very important to have a very high level of precision. So if you are an experimental researcher, or if you are working in any area as an engineer or in laboratory type of work, this is for you, where you really have to do something which is very high level of precision is there, and you really have to, the purpose is true cause and effect relationship. So often you are doing, we call it a causation. What is a cause of this relation? If this is going to impact that, for instance, if you are measuring height versus weight, obviously it is probably very likely that if the person is taller, that weight is higher. It's normal, right? So you're looking at this relationship between height and weight. So that sort of relationship you're doing, and you really have to randomly assign that to establish that what you're saying. And finally, this is what, as I said, my own research too, which is quasi-experimental, where we involve manipulation of independent variable. That's the way when a researcher can control the research. So in quasi-experimental, as a researcher, you have full control of the research, that how you're going to manipulate and really, see the causation, that how things are impacting with one another. An example of being is that, say, you are looking at a particular, innovation and how this is going to impact on productivity, maybe in terms of sales number. Okay, so that's sort of experiment in social science that you can do if you are there. So I'm going into the introducing new research methods now. So you see that I told already that qualitative research is more inductive, quantitative research is deductive. But over time, and after so many years now, I became more into a mixed method researcher at this moment, where I do have a quantitative component at the beginning to have a very broader sample, right? Because through quantitative one, a survey, you can reach out to as many as people, like 200 or 300. And then from that sample, a subject, you can go into more deeper, like 10% of 200 is 20. And you go into more qualitative research to deep dive into them and really go through some open-ended questions. And by doing it, you can complement your data that will produce very good evidence, very good research. So that's the combination of the two. So I will tell you now the three components that involved in a designing of the research. And as I'm making it a little bit bigger, as you will see that there is a triangle. There is a philosophical worldview at the left. There are some selected strategies for inquiry in the right. And as you will see, the bottom, that the methods of this thing, that the questions, the collection of data, analysis of the data, interpretation of the data, writing up, validation. So the cycle is long, the cycle is continuing, and sometimes the cycle is never ending, but you really need to be, believing yourself that you want to make it happen, and you really have to believe in yourself. That is very, very important in terms of research. And as you will notice that at the center, I have the qualitative research, quantitative research, and mixed method. So while I cannot see the, that chat box, I really want you to think about that. Where do you fall in terms of your own research? Are you more a qualitative researcher who really want to unearth things in a more inductive way, or a quantitative researcher who wants to see things in a more deductive way? or you are turning into, like me, in a more mixed method research. So we can have a good discussion at the end that where you are. So how you really want to select your research question? By now, I actually cannot see the screen or whatsoever. Is there any particular question, or are you hearing clearly? Is anyone can tell me?
Prof is very clear, and we can see your slides. It just, I think we have some queries and some of the things are wishing. So I think later on, towards the end of our session, that we will be receiving all sort of questions, and then I think we will stop sharing the screen so you can see the people out there. So,
Absolutely, yeah, we could have. Okay, so thank you, Mahfuz. It helps because, but at any time, if you think that where I need to get more time, just let me know. So you see that it is important. The most important part of doing a research is to select your research problem. Well, you can ask me. I get almost, frankly speaking, I'll be very honest, I get probably 10 or 20 inquiry a week or even more. Dr. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐨𝐫, I like to do my PhD. I get many from Bangladesh, obviously, because I'm from there. And there are some really very solid background of many of them. And many of the emails, I don't see that actually what is the research problem or the research question or the research they like to do. Sometimes we hear that, okay, probably for us to suggest, that's not the way. You really need to select the research problem. How you can select your research problem. To select a research problem, you have to do some research. How does it make sense? This is like, I'm not sure. I'm just giving an example the way I do my teaching. Say, for instance, you want to buy maybe a couple of shares in the stock exchange. You know, wherever you are, there are stock exchange. Although it is not a very good time to buy a share in this volatile market, but say for our exercise, I'm asking you that, okay, you want to buy a share. Do you just go to the market, share market, and you buy a share? Is that a good idea? Or do you research on that particular company or companies, go into the balance sheet, go into and forecast that how deep their pocket and how good is their company operations, and try to do the research, and then you buy the shares? That's probably the right way to do, right?
yes, yes.
Or you want to buy a computer rather. Okay, it's a different thing, but you do some research before you buy a computer, don't you? I know sometimes you get some emotional decision like I will buy a Dell or I will buy something, but I think it is the research that helps you to make a decision. And I would like you to really set your research problem, to do some research, and then you find the research problem. What is a viable research problem? What is a really good research problem? What is a really demanding research problem? And you can bring your own experience, your discipline. If you are from agricultural discipline, bring that discipline, and your experience, your expertise. This is something that you should use. As I said, anything of your past expertise, you should leverage for research. But also you should think about who is going to be the audience of your research. Like for me, mainly my research is aimed at policymakers, government policymakers, big organizations, international organizations. They're my key audience. And then obviously businesses. So that's the audience. Who are the audience of your research? How should we plan a research project in your area of interest? So I start with this particular question to you. If you have a piece of paper in front of you, or maybe if you can write whatever, I would love to know this answer. How should we plan a research project in your area of interest? What is a good research project in your area of interest? What do you see? Do you consider your own experience, expertise? Do you see the audience? Do you see the market demand? Or do you see what is the need of that time? I really love to know this answer. As I said that I told you about interdisciplinary research, and since I come from this social science research at this moment, and social policy, economics, and more importantly nowadays, political economy is driving my research. It is all about the political economy. That's what I'm teaching as well as, in my university. But at the same time, that's the key driving force that's doing. So you will notice that your research also is linked with other disciplines. And you are the first person and the best person who know better than anyone in the world that what is your research is all about. And I guarantee that. You are the best person, not a PhD, not a Harvard professor. You are the person. So you need to you need to draw this many of the circles that, okay, this is my research. This is where my boundary is. This is where I am really trying to focus. Where do you fit into this group or groups? Now, how to identify an interesting research topic or question? I believe so that many of the young researchers particularly, they need some help. I needed some help too. I won't deny that. And what I thought is that it should be relevant. Number one, it should be relevant. It should be timely, obviously. It should have a pressing social concern or an economic issue. So the book I showed you and the previous book I wrote during the global financial crisis. So, and probably hopefully we will write something, and we have already written something on COVID. So that are timely. COVID-19 is timely, it is relevant. So it is a pressing concern. So we are doing research, many of our research on this topic currently. How COVID is impacting our marketing, how COVID is impacting our agriculture, how COVID is impacting our human life, how COVID is impacting this value chain. There are so many things, including many of the engineers who are probably here, that how basically, impact of this system of the COVID is in the whole physical aspects of the research in the physical science as such, or how probably these physical science tools can be used in monitoring the COVID-19. That's in the both way it can happen. So you see that important issue for policymakers, academia, international organizations. It's very, very important that you do. But more importantly, like when I focus, and my most research, as I said, currently is focusing on Southeast Asia, a lot more in Bangladesh as well, where I am from, is focusing there. And a lot obviously is focusing on Australia too, where I am currently, and also in this area. So this is a socio-political, socio-economic that my focus is. It should be important to you. If a research is not important to you, then why are you going to do this research for the first thing? Is to get a PhD, that's to get a master's, that's to get an honors, first class. I don't think that's a good proposition. You really need to make sure it is important to you. You feel that this is an important research. That's why you will like it. When you are designing your project, you ask me, many of the students are asking me, and the colleagues, younger particularly, that what is the purpose? So it is going to contribute to knowledge, that is very important. It is going to formulate a detailed plan of the project, including the methodological approach, theoretical framework. We often forget to really link with a theoretical underpinning when doing a research, particularly in our socio-economic research. It is very important to have a theoretical underpinning. Without this, it's very difficult to really publish in a high-quality journal. And that theoretical underpinning helps us to establish the inquiry, that what are the research questions that is driven from the theory and literature. Yeah. So to ensure that proposed research is how much time do I have? So ensure that proposed research is achievable within the required time and with available resources, and you demonstrate that have adequate expertise and experience to undertake the project. Now that is an important thing. If you may not have the adequate expertise, you can regain or retrain. And that happened, especially for a PhD project. You may not know all of the things that you need, the tools, as well as this expertise, and you grow in the first year or half, and then you undertake the research and finish on that. So variables, these are some of the language that we do: hypothesis, population, samples, significance, factor, and other. And these are the things you really need to examine. That what are those? You really need to do the basics of the research. So basically, that's what I wanted to tell you, that this is the basics of the research that you really need to do. Now, as you will see that I talked about dependent variable, independent variables, and how to define them, and the other terms that you might see for them. And you really need to look at these variables, including moderating variable, control variable, extraneous variables that you are going to examine. So it depends on you. It depends on you that how many different type of variable you are going to examine. If you are a young researcher, I want you to keep it simple, not to make it more complicated and include so many variables. Rather, keep it simple and do your first bit of research with you and publish first, have some idea, and then you go further. So let me just see that this is a typical outline, and especially many of you, if you are writing your research, particularly your proposal, because we receive so many proposals from prospective PhD students or prospective postdoctoral students. This is a typical outline that you should really follow. And Monash University has a fantastic tool which you can Google, which is saying that writing a research proposal, and you will see that how good it is to really outline a research proposal. So as I said, my intention today is not just to present a research, which I can do anytime, but to really tell you that it is needed to really present your research. But before you start, and this, where I showed here, you really need to see what is going to be your main research question. So we sometimes call it as a primary research question, and then you come into a secondary research question or questions. Whether it is worth answering, will this make an interesting and worthwhile project? Will the findings be of interest to others? Can you justify undertaking the study? And that is very important, the rationale of your research. And the interest to others means that maybe other research have said that future research should focus on this, and you can pick up that research. Okay, future research, this is the gap of the research, and you take it from there. And sometimes I like you to ask your family and friends when you write research, do you think it is good? Or ask your partner, ask your wife or husband, do you think it is a good research? We sometimes ignore this, but not really. They are clever enough. You can ask them, and they will say, yeah, probably it is good, and probably it is not. It is important that you really take help from others that whether it is a good research question. I like to really spend a bit of my thing, because currently I'm our School of Businesses Human Ethics research expert. So all of our research, probably particularly who are in the social science, involves data out of human. And maybe if you are doing is also involving human, or if you are a researcher using a laboratory and using mice for treatment, it is also not human research, but that's animal research. That's a different aspect. You also need ethical aspect as well. So let me talk about the human research. When you are looking at, we look especially at human aspect is incorporated. We really need to differentiate between what kind of evaluation you are doing and collecting of the method that involved in human research activities. Now, I was looking at this morning that what are the key things that you really need to look at when you looking at the human research. Maybe you are doing a survey where human subjects are involved. You definitely need to look at the human ethics. Obviously, in medical testing and treatment, if there are some who are in this medical science, it is definitely a human subjects that you are doing. Being observed by researcher also. Researcher having access to personal document of other material. Yes. And those in biological research, you collecting and using tissues, fluids, and salivas, obviously it is human research. It's coming out from human, and access to information that is published, unpublished data sources too. So that's sort of important thing that you really need to look at in terms of your research, right? That's why I said that ethics is very important in research, and it is important and it matters. But does it matter to you? It should. So what is ethics in research? When most people think ethics, they think the rules are distinguishing between right and wrong. And as a social scientist now, I became right and wrong can be different for different people. Something you may find it is right, I may not find it is right. So it is a very gray area that what is right and what is wrong. So we need to be very careful that actually in terms of the research ethics. Clearly, in terms of ethics, we really have to make sure that we are honest. We're not fabricating or falsifying any or misinterpreting any data to make our hypothesis accepted. For instance, I showed you. Objectivity is very, very important too. And you really need to avoid bias in data analysis and interpretation and other aspects of research where objectivity is expected or required. So, so as I said, that integrity in research is very, very important, that you act with sincerity, you strive for consistency, thought and action. But you have to be careful as well. Avoid careless errors, because sometimes you can be some errors. Maybe a particular, it's not a comma or a semicolon, but mainly if you are doing a mathematical research and your data, instead of writing 5.6, you have written 0.56. Can you imagine that how your whole interpretation can change? Carefully and critically to examine your own work and the work of your peers. You need to keep good records of research such as data collection, your design and correspondence. Usually the research that we do, we keep the data for 5 years. And for our PhD students too, we keep the data, even the PhD is conferred, we keep for 5 years as well. It's very, very important that you archive the data once even it is finished. Openness is important too. You share your data results, but very openly. But one thing you have to do, how good you as a researcher doesn't matter. Even many of the Nobel laureates, they also get criticism from their research as well. And obviously I am open to criticism, and I believe you should be open to criticism because that brings new ideas. You need to respect on IP, which is intellectual property. And plagiarism is something that you really have to say no to all time, that no, do not publish, use unpublished data, methods, the result without permission. Give credit where the credit is due. Do not use anecdotes. I really requesting you, do not use anecdotes. You give proper example or credit to any of the researcher. That's good, that's proper research. I said, be open to criticism and new ideas. Well, confidentiality is very important. As a research that you make things more confidential, because you're collecting some of the personal data of your subjects, especially if you're a social researcher, and then you make sure that any personal information is not, is really, kept confidential at all time. Responsible publication as well. Publish in order to advance research. Don't just publish to wasteful duplication of publication. I know many researchers, they will first publish as a, it is, and will modify a little bit, maybe 5%, and will do this. And I'm not mentioning any universities recently, the news we have found in Dhaka or wherever. I don't want to name calling anyone. But that duplicative publication is not something that we should be engaged in. That's not something that we should do as a researcher. That's not an honor. That's a disgrace. We need to respect our colleagues. Obviously, respect your colleague and treat them fairly. It doesn't matter how junior or how senior. Seniors should also respect juniors and vice versa. Responsibility is social responsibility as well, and we promote good social and prevent the mitigate social harms through research, public education, advocacy, non-discrimination, competence, and obviously you really need to make sure that you maintain and improve your own professional competence, expertise through lifelong education and learning. So if you're a researcher, you really have to make sure that it's never ending. You are enjoying your journey. It's a journey, and eventually you will obviously stop one day, but it is a lifelong education. Obviously, as I said, legality, human subjects protection, these are some of the last things that we really have to make sure. So where we stand and where we go, I like to open my sort of talk now, and that's probably the last slide. That I'm stopping that sharing button, and I will come back soon. But I really want to know where you stand and where you want to go. I'm coming back for a Q&A, and I am really encouraging you to ask anything unsolicited, whatever is in your mind. Where do you stand in terms of research, and where do you want to go? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. It was incredible in nature. I would say that was a light that we are all the way looking forward to. I would say we all are in a dark tunnel, and we need some lights to get a fresh air on it, and that was the fresh blood to the research world, I would say. So we do have some questions, right, Prof? Yeah. So let me just go to one of the questions that has been asked. Like, Prof, if you see this question, just from is to what extent do journal publications and number of citations play a vital role in determining a potential researcher's profile in order to be competitive as a PhD aspiration student? Prof, if you get the idea.
It's a very good question, Ahmed. Now, as I said, it is not just the citation. Citation matters, but it is about that inquiry that you do. If it is a good inquiry, if it is a good research, it will be cited. Someone will pick up that research. So it is the one thing will bring another thing. If it is a good inquiry of research, solid research based on facts and figure, process is right, people will definitely read your research. The more they will read your research and use your research, the more citations will come. And I have a few friends who came into academia in last only maybe 5-6 years. They have citation of more than 10,000. Can you imagine? And I looked at their profile. One of them, also from Dhaka University, and he is based now in USA. And he just wrote one paper in data science, and that has been cited 6,000 times. Just one paper. So that was one good research can make you famous. It's like writing something as Adam Smith wrote on something. So it's just one piece of research can do. Now, when you will do good research, then it will be your habit to do good research too. And you don't take 5 years or even 10 years to become a very good researcher. You just need to start today and think and believe in yourself that you are going to do this. So there is no better time to start to become a good researcher.
Thank you, Prof. Prof, we have questions from Azim. Azim, you can directly ask. Mr. Azim, you can directly ask to Professor.
Thank you. This is Mohammad Azim, Senior Lecturer, World University of Bangladesh. Sometimes as a student of PhD or MPhil, we lost the concentration due to surrounding problems like family problem or other issues. In that case, how can we get back to the concentration for the research?
Azim, it doesn't only happen to to PhD student and MPhil, because you know you have to juggling with this world. There are so many things. You may have family, you may have young kids, or maybe unborn. You know, maybe there are some family issues. There are some many things in the world, right? But as a researcher, we need to take things in a way that our research is also going on. Let me tell you how I deal with this. When I was doing my PhD research, my son was born in Canberra. So I took 15 days of complete off. And then I came back to do my research. You should be taking off when you are in problem. And do not try to do research when you are in a problem, because you cannot concentrate on that research. Do one thing, do research when you are really in a good frame of mind. So just maybe do your research as a block of time, that this is the research I'm doing. And if there are other issues and problems, to deal with that problems first and come back to do research, because these two things will not go very well. You really have to do and manage in that way. So that's probably the best way to do, but I know we need to do a lot of multitasking at this moment, because you have maybe never-ending problems or at this moment in this current situation. However, you know that you really have to make sure that you don't compromise with your research.
Is there any other question from the room?
Thank you.
From the live room, either from Shohel Rana, who is going to be a doctor soon, and we have Emily Bashir. She's a Malaysian and one of the PhD students at University of Malaya, and also we have Kanis Hermi. If you have any questions, then we can go on. Otherwise, we'll be taking some questions from the comments.
I have a question. Thank you. It was really a nice presentation, especially on research. So I guess the new researcher will definitely be helped by your insights. So my question is not that related to research, but to the area you are working on. Especially you talked about financing to achieve the sustainable development goals. So is it really government is spending as a financing, or is it the financial inclusion that can really help achieving the sustainable development goal in the coming years? And I have another question, that we often do research and we go and reach out to the respondent to collect data. So is it truly happening that the output or outcome of our research really trickle down to the to the respondent in a real sense? And I have another question actually. Does economic growth really help achieving sustainable development goal? Like in Bangladesh, there's a hype that the country is growing, economy is growing, so everybody is actually running after the economic development, industrial development. So is there any true relationship between the economic growth and achieving sustainable development, or is it side by side? Because there's some countries like in Africa, they're also striving to achieve the sustainable development goal, although their economic condition is not that good. There's some country like other developed countries who are economically developed. So how is it actually? This is sometimes a paradox for us as a researcher to actually refine the whole idea. So thank you, Prof. I hope your answers.
Really very good questions. Very good questions. Very thought-provoking questions. Thank you so very much. Just to respond to the first question, which is financing SDGs. There are financial inclusion. There are instruments where, mostly in developing countries, government is the main source of finance, as you all know. But growing sort of trend is that we have to really bridge between public and private sort of effort and partnerships, where private sectors are also coming in, joining with this public sector to really financing, because government alone cannot fund all of these measures that we really need to do. In terms of the data collection, as I can see, I fully agree with you. I tell you my experience almost 32 years back when I was studying in Bangladesh, my first degree in Chittagong. I did the survey in the same village, Jobra, next to the Chittagong University, where Grameen Bank really piloted its project. So when I went to the same subjects, you understand, the same subjects, and that subjects means that ladies, they knew all the answers of the questions. So that's a very interesting question that you have asked, that is that a true representative of the answer that we are really looking for? And whether this has got an impact. I think to avoid this, we really have to do one thing, which, as I have shown in my research, is perhaps to do randomization. When you implement that, when you distribute that questionnaire, do one thing, which is do randomization and take a bigger population and pick your sample from there using randomized techniques. And that's third question is very interesting, which as a political economist, I find also my day-to-day sort of foods for thought, that whether economic development is going to impact or enhance sustainable development. Actually, I think you gave that answer. It should go side by side. There is no that it is not a causation or such, because we have seen many countries with some development happening, but there are 17 goals. Not all goals have been achieved in those countries. So yes, it is important to have economic development, but that's not something. I'm not mentioning any country's name, very rich country, but many of the goals are at the very bottom. Thank you. Sohail, very good question. Any other?
Prof, we have another question from one of our the person who are also in the this room. So let me just Emily, can you ask directly to Prof?
Amelia. Yeah, I can read Amelia's question here. Amelia is, yeah.
Yes, Emily. Go on, Emily, go on.
Assalamualaikum. Okay, thank you, Dr. Mahfuz. Okay, Assalamualaikum, Prof. Associate Professor Dr. Tapan. Okay, I just want to ask, what is actually the thing that inspires you to write and write again, write and write more after PhD life? Because yeah, in my institution, many of my colleagues even sometimes demotivated to write after PhD life especially. So what is actually the factor that motivates you? So that is actually my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a very nice, important question. And I have done in the past so many collaborative research with my colleagues in Malaysia, particularly University Science Malaysia. Professor Azlan is my very good friend. UITM, Professor Mustafa is a good friend of mine. So, and I visited there as well. So it is a very important question that once you finish the PhD and you enter into the teaching, you have a lot of loading in teaching, right? And you don't get enough time to really finish research. So it is there because you probably do 20 hours of teaching. I don't know how many hours. It sometimes happens in some places. And you write good writing. I think that the best way I would suggest is try to create some partnership with your like-minded young researcher, as well as have a mentor as well, who is a senior researcher, and work as a group rather than trying to work only by yourself. That would be very difficult if you have too much teaching and just working. And that's my strategy. I lead now many research where I intentionally include early career researcher. And I sometimes give them the key authorship. I'm leading that research. So that is probably one of the good strategy, but I don't think you should end up working during holiday or during the weekend. But the strategy that you should have is the way that you can really maximize your research at your research time. Maybe 1 day a week, you should really be strict to that research. 4 days, you do all your teaching and other things. Just 1 day, you put something in front of your door that this is my research day. You do your research from say 9 to 5. This is my research day. Okay, you tell your student that this is my research day. That's it. And 1 day a week is 20%. I believe your university will approve you 20% research opportunity, right? 80% you can be something else, but just be strict to that. So collaboration, number one. Number two is just do 1 day at least a week, and you will definitely get time for doing research.
Thank you, Prof. I hope Emily got his answer. Prof, let me introduce one of our guests today also. He's Mr. Fakhrul Islam. He is teaching at Stanford University. He's an assistant professor at Stanford University and also co-founder of
Assalamu alaikum to you all. Nice to have you, sir, in our platform. I had classes, so I was just missing that opportunity. But at the end of the session, I just able to join here. So nice to have you, sir. And so far, it was fine and nice. Thank you once again.
Right.
So I really want to thank you, those of you who really initiated this fantastic platform to help not just the researcher today, but it will definitely encourage many of the researchers in the future, because we should have a legacy that we continue our, our effort, and that's what we should be doing.
Prof, we'll be taking another 2 questions, then we'll be going off.
Sure.
Kanis, Sharmin, do you have any question?
Thank you, Dr. Mahfuz. Dr. Topun, I thank you very much for your nice presentation. It was really very helpful. You enlightened us with many important information. My question is, I am a very new one in the field of research. So my question is, what strategies and techniques do you follow, especially for your research, for systematic literature review? Can you please give us any suggestion?
Yes, it is a very important thing for systems. That's the starting point to do a research. So I would give you very simple one, because as I said, I told you once that keep it simple. So one thing that I do in doing my systematic literature review, I first try to have the key research question, and through this research question, I need to know what are the keywords that I am trying to examine, because I need some searching, searching something. It's very important, because one word, if you probably don't use that important word, that will not give you the enough papers what you need to do, or the literature, let's say. So, Kanis, what I would suggest you to really have that keywords and the combination of the keywords. That's the first thing. And you do many different permutation and combination of that keyword. And nowadays we have so many Web of Science and library, online library and Google library where you can search that. But our university where we are working, we have really good database. I understand that not all university you have, but you have that. That's the first thing. Secondly, you really have to create a good Excel. Okay, in the left hand side, you create the serial number, that how many you have got, and then you really do, okay, what are the authors of this research, what is the key aim of the research, what are the key methodology used, what are the tools have been used, what are the key findings of the research. This is something like before you do the cooking, you really have to bring everything, and then you need to write. You need to really spend at least a good couple of weeks to do your systematic literature review before you start writing something on your research. That's the most important thing. And from that big Excel sheet that you have found, it may not have captured all the literature, because literature review is a continuous process. From there, you can bring some themes, and that themes will help you that what are the key trend or themes came out from that literature review. And that part we call as a metadata analysis. Metadata analysis, I'm talking about metadata analysis. So you do first your systematic literature review, and then you do the meta-analysis. And from the meta-analysis, you can then start writing. Okay?
Okay.
You should try
Thank you
that
very
now.
much.
Yeah, please try that now. And don't keep it simple, first thing.
Right.
Okay. Thank
We
you.
do have a question from the floor. Thank you, Kanis and Prof. We have a question from the floor. Someone, he is a doctor from graduated from IIUM, International Islamic University of Malaysia.
Yeah, I can read that question. A very important question. Hawk is probably, I can call you Hawk. Look, the example I was giving you, that many citation of 6,000 is in the area of information systems. Using information systems in health. I'm not sure what is in your area. You're using information system for management of knowledge and innovation. So maybe you really have to publish in a very high quality journal. So that's for our Australian case, which for us is ABDC, Australian Business and Deans Council. Make sure, Hawk, that it is your main outlet where you will be publishing. And can I tell you, I have some very good friends who are also in Malaysia, and IIUM and USC, University of Science Malaysia, so USM. They are very good researchers as well. So I know some of your teachers are very good. You really need to publish in that sort of journal. That is the most important thing. Even if it takes time, do not publish in predatory journal. You should publish in at least good quality ABDC journal, and then you access and write to us, because otherwise that's your life. That's what is your mirror, and everybody will see from your research, from your publications. You have to be strict, needing to publish in a very high quality research. So that's what is the starting point for postdoctoral fellowship and research fellowship. We are looking at researcher who has published good research. Even those who are coming here to do PhD at this moment, we at least want to see that have some sort of publications, even in C, but we'd like to see that some sort of publications. But yeah, Hawk, we will be opening our postdoctoral fellowship in May next year. You should keep in touch with me. It's not my area, but I can help you to find people who are in this area. So Griffith University offers 8 postdoctoral fellowships every year, and that starts in May and ends in June, the call for research fellowship or postdoctoral fellowship.
Prof, we'll go for the last question. Dr. Uzair, who is from University of Putra, Malaysia. Dr. Uzair, if you have any question to Prof.
Thank you, Dr. Mahfuz and Professor. It's very simple. Just as I am from social science, basically I am from marketing. My one issue is that the implication of the marketing research, especially marketing research or social science research, does this research create any impact on the society or policy making, or because in our last part of our writings we always show some implication, but does it actually work? Or if it is work, it is country wise, or it is this is my observation, is that whether it works or not. Thank you, Professor, and thank you, Dr. Mahfuz.
Oh yeah, Dr. Ujir, it does work. Let me give you an example because this morning we are doing research to be published in Journal of Macro Marketing. You know very well, Dr. Ujir. So Journal of Macro Marketing is our target journal. So we have been working on a paper based on farmers market. So as you are in the area of marketing, it would be easier for you to understand that farmers market in places like Vietnam is, we are making a comparative study between India and Vietnam. So India, we looked at Hyderabad, they have farmers market, and also in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, there is farmers market. So your question is that we collected primary data from there and comparing the type of subsistence marketing in two different countries. And obviously it has huge implication and societal implication as you can imagine that particularly in farmers market, because farming is the key and backbone of that economy in many of the developing countries, right? And also even in Malaysia too, there are farming is very important as well. So it does have a serious policy implication, as well as high implication for practice as well. So I would say that it has serious public implications, relevance. So don't ignore the relevance of the research in marketing.
Prof, thank you so much for your enlightenment about the queries that we had from the floor and from the comments. We're running out of time, ladies and gentlemen. We don't, I mean, we are over an hour, so I wouldn't, dare to take more time from Professor. So we are, I mean, it is a very kind of Professor, Dr. Tapon Sharkar, that he gave us a time discussing about the issues that are basically we always had in our mind, that how to go about it, whether we should go about qualitative research, whether we should go about quantitative methods, and how should we frame where we are, where we want to go, and all sort of questions that do comes in. But surely 1 hour and a half is not or never enough to discuss all sort of things. But we thank and we eager to know more in future, and we would always love to have your cooperation, Prof. We thank you very much again. And ladies and gentlemen who are watching today, this webinar, it will be a recorded session, so we'll upload on our platform as well. With that note, by thanking Professor Dr. Tapon Sharkar from Griffith University, Australia, we would like to call this show, and we'll be seeing you again. With that note, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So much. Thank you, everyone.
Sir.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.